Hi ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Miss Raga's Art Room. Okay, so today we are working on our tomato draw along. So I've got my gray paper all set to go here, and we're going to be doing this with colored pencil. But to begin, we have to actually start with a contour outline. Now, I'm not making it up. I have my tomato here, okay, ready to go. And remember, we're kind of competing with our loud brain. Remember we talked about and why drawing is hard. Your brain is like that loud friend and your eyes are like that quiet friend. And your brain sees this tomato and does something basically like this. Let me put my name on my paper here. It does something like this, right? It says, yep, there's our tomato. Right? It does the most simplified drawing it possibly can because it thinks in visual, your brain, or your body, I should say, thinks in visual symbol schema. Okay, so it translates everything into kind of like that stick figure or simplified form. So we've got to fight that a little bit. We've got to do good observational drawing and really listen to our eyes and look at what we're actually seeing here with our contour. Okay, so I'm going to flip my paper over and start the drawing work. So I'm going to set my tomato out of frame. I can still see it, okay, but you can't see it because my drawing paper is the center of the frame for the video. All right, so looking at my tomato, the first thing I observe is it's actually not perfectly square. It's got these beautiful wedges to it. Now, because I'm working with just contour outline, I'm not worried about any shading. Mechanical pencil is actually a fine drawing tool to use for this. I'm just starting with the initial outer edge. The other thing I notice on the tomato is it's actually quite a bit wider than it is tall from the perspective I'm looking at it at. Okay, there we go. All right, so I've got kind of the sides drawn in. Kind of rounded off, goes a little bit flatter at the bottom, and it's not perfectly symmetrical. All right, now, from what I observe, I'm going to draw in the wedges I see towards the back edge here. Kind of dips in, comes out again, comes around to the front. Okay, and then in the front, what I see happening is I have these wedges or sections in the front where the tomato kind of has those bumps or lumps to it. Okay, so starting with a very basic contour outline. Now the other thing or trick that your brain plays on you when it's simplifying or creating that visual symbol schema is this. Usually when I ask students, adult, teenage, children alike, to draw something from observation, they'll combine the two simplest perspectives of the object. In this case, your brain automatically thinks of that tomato from the top. But when we're looking at it from the perspective of the side, okay, we don't see that perfectly symmetrical top. We see something closer to this, right? That planar distance tipped away from us. So what I'm going to do is sketch in now that little center dome. Now these are fake tomatoes, right? So that little plastic center nub is, I think, supposed to be kind of like a stem. It doesn't quite look like that, does it? Oh, it's a fake tomato. We'll work with that. Okay, and now I'm going to start sketching those leaves coming out from the center. And the leaves aren't going to look like that above perspective. They're going to change shape as their planar perspective in relationship to myself in the picture frame changes as well. All right, and we're fighting this whole time tens of thousands, right, hundreds of thousands of years of evolution, because your brain all this while is screaming at you, no, 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 that's not what it really looks like. Because your brain thinks of things in that visual symbol schema, right? Thinks of it like stick figures, like stick figure tomato. Whoops, you know what, that one I don't like the position of it. That leaf has to move over a little bit more. Kind of goes more this way at this angle. Excellent. So again, we're just doing some good observational drawing. We're really seeing what our eye actually sees. Okay, erase any overlaps where your tomato topper should overlap the top of your tomato. The other thing I'd like you to do is also now draw in your table line. Let's give this tomato a sense of space it's sitting in. As well as I want you to observe the cast shadow. Now, in the case of our classroom, we've got all that overhead lighting happening. So we're gonna make do as best we can with the cast shadow we see happening on the table. You may see multiples of them. Go with the most dominant. Like I see two intersecting, but the most dominant one I see, so I've got a really strong overhead light that's to the left of it. And so it's casting a pretty strong shadow off to the right side here. It looks something like that. Actually, you know what? My tomato's a little bit rounder on this edge. I'm going to round out that edge of it. There we go. Okay. And so far, I've got a nice contour outline developed for my tomato. Excellent. All right. In our next video, we're actually going to start working with the colored pencils to make this look really three-dimensional and do some shading. Thanks for watching the contour. Let's pick it up with the colored pencil next. Take care. Hey ladies and gents, okay, thanks for joining me again in Miss Raga's art room. Let's pick back up and do some shading now with our tomato, all right? So you should have been given already a kit of colored pencils. We have our neutrals, white, black, and brown. We have a dark and a light green. We have a kind of dark, middle, and light red, as well as a yellow and an orange to work with also, okay? In addition, you should have gotten yourself some little blenders. I love Q-tips for blending. I think they work great, as well as an eraser to work with. Okay, so make sure you've got your shading supplies with you because we're gonna add some color to this gorgeous tomato. All right, but before we do that, let's do a little shading warm-up. Folks, on the back of your paper, so flip it over to where your name is, okay? I want you to put a 1, give it a circle, and write value, scale. Underneath that value scale, I want you to give yourself 5 boxes linked side to side. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay? Now underneath these, I want you to write dark, middle in the center, and light on the end. Now go a little bit down your paper in another free space. I want you to also do 2, give it a circle, and we're going to title this curved shading. And what I'd like you to do is give yourself a circle. What we're going to do is using pencil pressure and shading technique, we're going to turn this circle into a gorgeous sphere. We're even going to go so far as to give it a beautiful little cast shadow in space like so. Okay, so we've started with our value scale in here. So ladies and gents, go ahead and grab, I'm going to grab a red to work with. Okay, let's start with our value scale. What I'd like you to do is in the dark, I want you to use firm pencil pressure, and I want you to give yourself the absolute waxiest, beautiful dark value you can with the pencil. Okay, heaviest pencil pressure. Press, press, press hard. Okay, under light, I'd like you to put no pressure on the pencil now. Tilt the point to the side And I want you to give it, the pencil I should say, the absolute lightest pressure you possibly can. You're not pushing on the pencil at all, you're just letting the weight of the pencil drag across the paper. Now this should be a review from previous grade levels. But what we're doing here is just exploring the range of value we can create with this one color just by using pencil pressure. Okay, let's find the middle between these two. Middle pressure now. Kind of Goldilocks syndrome, right? Not too hard, not too soft. Okay, so kind of my in-between, between the two. Now there's even further value range we can discover within this pencil. So now I'd like you to look between your middle and your dark. Let's find a darker middle in there, so heavier pencil pressure, right? It won't be as dark as your dark value, but certainly going to look darker than your middle value. And you can see just by varying how heavy we press, we can start creating that different range of value within the pencil. Okay, now let's go between our light and our middle. So again, it'll look lighter than this middle, but darker than this light. So let's figure out what our pencil pressure in between light and middle might look like. There we go. Now, ladies and gents, what you've just created is a beautiful value scale. You've shown me what values you can get just by varying the pencil pressure of just this pencil itself. So dark, middle, and light value, as well as some in-betweens. Nicely done. In our next exercise, let's warm up that curved shading muscle. If you did the apple exercise with Miss D'Angelo, with Miss DiGiochino, my goodness, Miss KD, way back when, you have done this before, right? Remember, when an object is round, we can't use a straight shading stroke. It'll just look flat. What we need to do is quote-unquote shade with the form, okay? And oops, I forgot a step, I'm sorry. What we're gonna imagine is that we have a light source, LS, shining down from the upper left in this direction on our sphere. Okay, so that means it'll be darker further away from the light source, lighter towards it. And what we're going to do is use that pencil pressure and now combine it with our curved shading stroke to create the illusion that the sphere is actually really round. Right, so I'm curving, I'm shading with the form, I'm curving that shade stroke. And as I get up towards the light source, I'm lightening up on how hard I'm pressing on that pencil, and it gets lighter and lighter and lighter. Now, believe it or not, I can also blend my colored pencil as well. I can take a Q-tip, okay, or a rolled up piece of tissue or paper towel, and I can actually use pressure on the Q-tip and smudge this colored pencil ever so slightly. Not as much as we could smudge regular graphite pencil, but we can smudge it a little bit. Because what it does is it basically takes the wax and by applying friction to it, melts it ever so slightly and allows us to blend and smudge it. There we go. And voila, we have created this beautiful round sphere. If you've over smudged a little bit, go ahead back with your chunk eraser there and just touch up the edge. All right, now for our cast shadow, go ahead and grab your black pencil. Cast shadow is happening on a flat surface. We don't need to worry about a curved shading stroke, but we are still going to worry about pencil pressure. We're going to go heaviest underneath our sphere, and then as we move away from the object, our cast shadow is actually going to fade a little bit. And this phenomenon happens because as the light rays kind of reach further away from the object's able to block fewer of those light rays, so it looks like the cast shadow lightens up. But again, because the cast shadow is happening on a flat surface, I don't have to worry about doing a lot of smudging. Beautiful. Okay, and now, again, same thing, I can take my Q-tip and do a little blend, a little smudge, a little fade. Okay, take my eraser to refine my shape, and check that out. We have taken our curve shading stroke and made something look really three-dimensional. So that was a nice warm-up. Let's take these warm-ups to our tomato. Okay, everybody find your kind of middle red color. Okay, should be that Crimson Lake. Now, if you're working with your own pencils at home, I just want you to, at this point, find yourself a kind of middle red color, a light red color, and a darker red color, if you can. If you only have two reds, it's still gonna work out. I want you to find a light in the middle. Okay, so I'm gonna start with our middle red first. And I'm going to look for where I see our light source happening. So on my tomato, it's happening from kind of top up here to the left, and it's shining down. My cast shadow is opposite. And I can see my heaviest concentration and value shapes, ooh, this goes back to our mosaic portrait, are happening towards the bottom and the sides. So I'm going to use middle pencil pressure to start with, tilting the pencil towards the side. And I'm going to look towards the side, the bottoms, and in between those tomato wedges, right? These little valleys in between the tomato wedges, where I see those darker value shapes happening. Kind of where the little lumps of the tomato peak up, like the tops of the mountains seem to have the heavier, darker values as I observe. Right? Again, this is one of those instances where we got to listen to our quiet eyes. Our quiet eyes are observing and saying, hey, did you notice that we've got a lot more dark happening on this tomato in and around the sides and the edges and those valleys in between those wedges of tomato than we have happening on the tops. And the thing is, if it were just left up to our brain, right? If we just let our brain dictate it and we weren't doing really good observational drawing, we'd probably just have a solid red circle. All right, excellent. So I'm taking my red, working, what happens kind of more down towards the bottom. As I work my way down towards the bottom, again, I'm continuing to curve my shading stroke with the form. Get my pencil, quick little sharpen. Ooh, I might need to sharpen that even a bit more. Okay, got it. We can already see the form kind of starting. Okay, I'm now going to go in for my lighter red. I'm going to look for where I see that middle red kind of transition now to more of that lighter, brighter red towards the top and through the middle. And I'm going to layer it right over top of that middle red value. And where I layer it right over top, I'm also going to even do a little blend and get in there and do a little smudge with it. And then you can start working your way back and forth between the darker and lighter value pencils. Now this technique is called layering with your colored pencil, which makes total sense because what we're doing is we're taking the colored pencil and we're in essence creating layers of this pencil over top of each other. Again, you'll notice that your lighter values do seem to be happening towards the top of the tomato and towards the center. And you want to start looking for those value shapes. Whoop, I didn't quite finish the back edge of this tomato here, of this wedge, I should say. You can see that this back edge has some darker red values towards it as well. Okay, layer my light in over top. There we go. Beautiful. Okay, kind of keep working my way around. And then down in towards the middle. I'm going to take my Q-tip, and even when I'm doing my blending, I'm using a curved blending stroke. Okay. Starting to look pretty 3D. All right, let's grab now my dark red, okay? Let's go back to those darkest areas of red value you see happening. Think back to our mosaic portrait. Think back to what you see as value shape, the shape of those shadows that you see happening. And I want you to now layer in the darkest red you see happening. You may see happening under leaves. Again, we're in those tomato valleys between the wedges where they're happening. Let's start to build up some of those darkest red values. I can definitely see it happening behind this wedge. It gets pretty darn dark red, kind of in this center area and out. Okay. Same here in between these two little wedges. We get some really deep red value. If you need to mix more of your middle red back into it, do so. Right? The point is that we can kind of keep working back and forth between these different value colored pencils. And as I work my way down towards the bottom, this is where I start getting some more of those heavier dark red values towards the bottom edge. And the side. I'm just going to kind of keep working back and forth between my middle and my dark red and building up those value shapes I see happening. Ooh, there we go. Now we're really starting to get some form. Layer in a little bit more of that middle red over top of it. And I think it's about time we'll do a little bit of blending too. right, terrific. I'm gonna grab my Q-tip. Let's now do some blending, again, using that curved blending stroke, shading stroke, however you like to think about it. Let's do a little smudge. Let's start to mix this colored wax together to really get some gorgeous value shapes happening. Again, just like with our portrait, now you're taking the object and you're breaking it down, those colors down into their value shapes. And this takes practice, ladies and gents. Remember, draw-alongs are about us doing that good art drawing practice, not about us getting it perfectly on the first go-round. Beautiful. There we go. Now we got some really nice shading happening. Really nice blending. Ooh, and we're starting to see that tomato form happen. Beautiful. Okay, now the top of my tomato goes almost to that like yellow-orange color, right? It fades up to not even be red anymore. Again, if it were just like our eyes, or I'm sorry, our eyes, if it were just our brain would have just been like, yep, red tomato, right? You're welcome. But we know we're doing better, more careful observation than that. So I can see, so I'm gonna grab my kind of yellow-orange color now in my yellow, and I can see that at the top of the tomato, in my brightest area, I have this transition to this almost like warm orangey color happening towards the top before it kind of sinks back down into that red, that deep red color. So I'm gonna go in with a blend of my kind of orangey, yellow-orange colored pencil as well as my bright yellow and layer over and put in some of that color as well. And if it looks too like hokey, like blended bright yellow orange, just blend some red back over top of it to kind of get it all to mush in. Again, remember your curved shading stroke as well. All right, so if you feel like it's getting a little too orangey, take some red right back over top of it and give it a little bit of a blend. Okay, and same thing, I'm gonna grab my Q-tip here. I'm gonna do just that. I'm gonna give it a little bit of a blend over the top. Ooh, and now that illusion of 3D, that illusion of form is really starting to come through. On this beautifully shaded tomato. Gorgeous. Okay, and I can even see, actually I'm gonna go back with my eraser. I'm gonna bring in, I can see this orange even comes a little bit further down on this part of the tomato and almost like fades into the body portion of it. There we go. Whew, that looks 3D. I love it. Okay, we've got the body portion of the tomato pretty well shaded. Excellent. Time for us to go over to the topper, to the little hat. So let's go ahead and trade out now. Keep your yellow, keep your orange. Find yourself your brown as well. Okay, and let's grab this kind of collection to make our greens here. All right, now looking at my little topper, I'm going to grab my dark green, and I'm going to start first with just that little topper, and I can see the side of it looks distinctly darker than the top of that cylinder. And it's also distinctly darker at the edges. The top is where I've got a much lighter green value that almost looks like it's mixing in even with a little bit of white. Now, if you need to make your green a little bit darker, go ahead in with a little bit of brown or green, or I'm sorry, brown or black in on top of it, and then blend the green right over again. So I can see a little bit of white possibly needed there, a little bit in the center. Grab the lighter green. All right, and now what I'm going to do is, using middle pressure, my dark green pencil, I'm going to look for those value shapes again in the folds of the leaf. So think like the mosaic portrait. Look for where you see those darker or middle value shapes happening in the folds and wrinkles of the leaf. Oops, I can see a spot I forgot on my tomato. Whoops, 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 whoops. We need some dark red there. Blend it into, I think, a little bit of a medium red. There we go. There we go. Whoops. Okay, so I can see some darker green shapes here, darker ones on the edge towards the middle. Okay, some little guys out to the edges here. You can see where I didn't quite get fully up to the edge and shape of my leaf. I want to do that. I have a little dark green shape there, little one here. Kind of comes in darker towards the center. This one I can definitely see. It's got kind of like a wrinkle here, and then darker out towards the outer edge. And then this one kind of like, I've got a shadow shape that like curves down towards the center and then like works its way out towards the edge this way. Cool. All right, now I'm going to work with a mixture of my light green, my yellow, and my white to start creating the lighter values. Again, I'm just layering that colored pencil in over top and around those shadow areas. Now, what I like about adding the yellow to this is that's how you get more of that kind of like spring greeny color, depending on your particular leaf that you're working with. Mine's definitely that kind of like limey spring greeny color, so I like blending some of that in there. I kind of find with my light is I almost end up kind of filling in the in-between spots around my shadow shapes I've already put in. And filling them in. Again, just do nice, careful observation of where you see those light, dark, middle value shapes. Go ahead and use your Q-tip to give things a smudge and a blend as you see needed. There's my light. Okay. A little bit of the light here. Around the edge of the leaf here. Okay, go in. I kind of notice on mine, I think it's A because they're towards the top of the lumps in the tomatoes. The tips of the leaf as they move away from the center definitely seem to have some of those lighter values to them. I like to mix that right in with the green there. Give this a little bit of a blend. Okay, get the last two. I'm gonna go really bright on this one and put the yellow down first here. Oh, I can see I've got a little bit of dark green happening just underneath that little topper there. And I'm gonna bring a light green right over top of that yellow with a little bit of white to it, because it's really very light at this edge. Check out that topper, looking so 3D. Terrific. Okay, ladies and gents, before we go into any more with cast shadows or whatnot, I'm gonna pause the video here, give everyone a moment to finish doing some really good blending, okay? And then we're gonna wrap this up with the cast shadow, tabletop, little bit of wall value, okay? And then some really beautiful bright highlights and such happening on the surface, and any other cast shadows. All right, thanks for watching, ladies and gents. Take care. Bye-bye. Hi, ladies and gents. Welcome back to Miss Raga's Art Room again. All right, so let's wrap up this tomato draw along. All right, so we have beautifully shaded the form, layering the colored pencil using our varied pencil pressure, that curved shading stroke. All right, we've done some gorgeous blending with the Q-tips. Now let's get the cast shadow, ground, background, and some fun stuff like highlights in. Now remember, I am not making things up. I've got my own tomato that I'm drawing from here. Okay, as you can see, it's just off screen because there's no way for me to have kind of everything fitting on at once. Cool. Let's tackle the cast shadow. So a cast shadow, ladies and gents, all it is where the object, okay, is blocking light from reaching the surface it's sitting on. So in this case, our tomato has a lot of kind of overhead light, and in my instance, because of my camera light, I have a lot coming from more like the upper left here. And so the cast shadow I see comes underneath the tomato and goes out towards the right side, the opposite of the light source. Now, the other interesting thing that happens with cast shadows is they're not solid. They're darkest directly underneath the object where the most light is being blocked, but as it moves away from the object, it starts to lighten up. So we're gonna create that effect with our pencil as well. So go ahead, grab that black colored pencil. I want you to go heavy, 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 heavy pencil pressure right underneath the tomato. This is where our darkest values are gonna be. So this is your firm pencil pressure, heavy, heavy, heavy. Bring it right up to the edge of the tomato. Okay, now, as we start to move away from the tomato, we're gonna start lightening up on that pencil pressure. Now here's the neat thing. No curved shading stroke needed at this point in the drawing because our tomato is sitting on a flat surface, so straight pencil stroke, right? No need to curve it. We're not creating the illusion that anything is curved here. Now I may need to go back and touch up. I can see my edge of my tomato where it's gotten a little bit fuzzy from the blending. I may need to go back with my red colored pencil and touch up my edge a little. That's okay. But now I'm more towards like a middle pressure as I work towards the outer edges of this shadow. Right, so heaviest right underneath. As I move away, lighter, lighter, lighter. Excellent. And of course, we're going to do some blend. Let's go ahead and grab that Q-tip of yours. And use firm pressure. And let's do a little blending. Remember, you could use really any blending tool. You could grab a piece of paper towel. You could use, oops, sorry guys. You could use, you know, some tissue. I've had students who swear by just using their fingers. I've never had that work for me, but hey, you know, experimenting is part of it. Now blend right up to the edge of the tomato. Don't leave any gaps. And bring it right out to the edge of the shadow. Beautiful. Go back with your pencil and touch up anywhere it looks, you know, uneven, or like you didn't get a good blend happening. And there's our nice cast shadow. Okay, let's add a tabletop. Time for that brown colored pencil. Go ahead and grab your brown colored pencil. And what we're gonna do is use just kind of a middle to light pressure. And let's put in just a nice soft tabletop color. Now, we're gonna mix the tabletop color into our cast shadow as well. So as you're doing this middle pressure, I want you to bring that brown directly over top of the cast shadow. And we'll blend again. Okay. Kind of tilting the pencil to the side. Ooh, I gotta sharpen this already. Middle pressure. Putting in that nice tabletop color. Giving this tomato a sense of space that it's sitting in. And I'm tilting that pencil to the side too, to get as even a layer of pencil as I can. It's gonna make my blending easier when it comes time to blend. Again, I'm bringing that brown right up over in on top of that cast shadow, because I want that cast shadow to feel like it's a part of the table, not separate from the table. So I'm gonna blend the brown right into it. You may have to go do a little bit firmer pressure for the brown inside the shadow there. It just takes a little time and patience to build this up. Excellent. Okay, right to the edge of the table too. Right up to the edge of the tomato. We don't want to leave any halos or gaps. Oh boy, uses quite a bit of pencil when we're shading like this. That's why I like those little handheld sharpeners. You don't have to constantly get up and sharpen your pencil. It's just right there for you. All right, now for blending our background. If you would like to get a wider blending tool, so not using the Q-tip. Q-tip's great for detail, but when we have to do large areas, you may need to get a wider blender. So pause for a minute, go ahead and get your paper towel or something else to blend with. All right, hey ladies and gents, I'm back. Got my paper towel to blend with. You could use tissue if you're at home, right? You could use a piece of paper towel if you're at home. Again, I have had some students who want to use their fingers, that's fine. You could even still use the Q-tip, you just gotta work a little bit more at it. All right, so now I'm gonna take my paper towel and over the whole surface, I'm gonna use really good firm pressure. And now I'm gonna blend and mix this colored pencil. Any area where you see some gaps, you need to go back and do some touch-up, do so. That's an important part of the craftsmanship of this. There we go. Get a nice smudge going. Whoops. my pencils off onto the table here. We'll move that over to the side, or onto the floor. This is probably shaking the camera a bit, so I apologize for that. Excellent. There we go. Nice blend to that tabletop. All right, let's put in our wall, okay, or background area. So grab your white colored pencil, and we are going to put an ever so subtle, barely any pressure on this pencil, light, light, light. Tilt it to the side. We're going to put just the ever subtlest, lightest white value to kind of create a lighter gray in the background here. This is just good pencil pressure practice. I am putting no weight on this pencil. I am just literally letting the weight of the pencil kind of drag evenly across the paper. Notice how I'm tilting it to the side. That's what you want to do. I'm putting down just the teeniest, tiniest bit of white. Right up to the edge of the tabletop. Right up to the edge of the tomato. And like no pressure on the pencil, just letting the weight of the pencil itself come across the paper. Beautiful. Again, flat shading stroke needed. No need to curve this one or anything. Right, we're just creating a sense of space that this tomato is sitting in and giving our drawing a real finished look to it. Okay, find a clean spot on your paper towel. Don't use the brown and black area. Find a nice clean spot. Go ahead and give this good pressure and just a little gentle smudge and blend. Just giving it a subtle little tone in the background. Excellent. Lovely. Okay, now for our last two finishing touches on this tomato. The first thing you'll notice about your tomato surface is it's shiny. You have these little reflected bits of light on the surface, particularly towards the top where most light is catching, and those are called highlights. So what we're going to do to create highlights in our tomato is we're going to take our eraser and we're going to just erase in little sections and those little shapes that we see as highlights. Here you can have some artistic fun with it. You can add as many highlights as you want. You will notice this is a curved surface to the object, so a lot of those highlights have a curved shape to them. So first we erase. Remember how I said colored pencils kind of somewhat erasable? This is what I mean by that. So we're just going to erase some little shapes where we see highlights happening. And now go ahead and grab your white colored pencil and firm pressure. Go ahead and put those highlights right in those eraser marks where you see them happening. Again, you can be kind of artistic with these. You could even make up a highlight or two if you wanted to. Let's just mix some of those in. A couple little highlights here and there. Okay. Go ahead and grab your Q-tip. Give just the edge of the highlight, a little smooth and blend. All right, and then finally, there is a phenomenon in drawing sometimes called a reflected light, okay? Or sometimes you will hear it called a reverse highlight. And what happens is on the dark side of a curved object, you will occasionally see a little bit of light happening on the reverse side. So I want you to go ahead with your eraser, and in the dark side of your tomato, side opposite the light source, so towards the bottom and back side, give a little eraser, and then with your white pencil, go ahead, put in a little bit of that reverse light. Let's do a little fancy finish to this. Okay, and once again, a little blend with the Q-tip. And there it is, ladies and gents. There's our finished tomato. Beautiful. Final thing you need to add to this is, of course, your artist signature. Now, make sure your name is on the back, okay? But now, this is a complete drawing, so we're going to sign with your own personal artist signature. Beautiful. Ladies and gents, that's our tomato draw-along. Thank you so much for watching. All right, take care. I'll see you next time in Miss Raga's art room.